We're going to go back. The piece that we discussed last week requires additional discussion. We're on page 214. We're in Iggeres Hakodesh letter number 4. And we're explaining, to go back, we're discussing what did David HaMelech mean when he said that he made Hashem's name. Sorry? What did I say? I'm sorry, it's 5. It says David made Hashem's name great. And we'll explain, it's 214, but chapter letter 5. What does it mean he made Hashem's name great? And we're explaining that. So to explain that, we go back and explain the ideas that it says that the Elam Hazeh, Elam Haba, or Gan Eden, was created with the Yud, Elam Hazeh with the Hey. And that's how we started saying. And then we had a question. And the question was, after we explained how powerful speech is, and just to go back and explain, when we said the Yud, we're referring to the Yud of Hashem's name, just remind ourselves, Yud is Chachma, the Hey of God's name is Bina, which represents expansion, the Vav of God's name is Hamshacha, which is Zah, which is the 6 middays, Vav, 6 middays, but also drawing down the middays, and the final Hey is Malchus, which is expression Dibur, which we said also corresponds to of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, which Atzilus is Yud, and Bria is Hey, etc. And also Atzilus is Chachma, and Bina, and Yitzir is Bina, etc. So we explained that the idea of the Yud created Olam Haba, or Gan Eden, is that from the Yud, it develops into a full understanding. And the whole idea of Gan Eden is when we come to comprehend and appreciate things we never could understand. Like we said, understanding music for the first time, understanding the appreciation of food, anything which is a new experience, and we get to understand it and appreciate it, that is true pleasure. If I never heard music before, I never had food, I never had, sight, anything I could suddenly, wow, that's what it is, that's Gan Eden. Gan Eden is to finally appreciate things, because this world wouldn't have the kelim, wouldn't have the ability to absorb godliness, only in Gan Eden, only in Olam Haba. And then we said, as far as the Hey refers to speech, because this physical world was created with God's speech. And then we explained something fascinating. That's why the Hey was speech. I was recapping the last couple classes. And then we explained that when we say that the speech really is deeply rooted in the essence of God's soul, or the let's first talk about the person. Since a person is created in the image of God, whatever it says about a person automatically could reflect and say. So if a person is created in the image of God, and a person's speech emanates. Okay, you got it. If a person's speech emanates from the deepest part of the soul, now if you remember the examples we gave about speeches, we said speech has 2 tracks. One track is the intelligence, the emotion, the intellect, the ideas that I'm sharing, and that comes from the process of seichel developing. And then we have the actual sounds being made, the 22 sounds divided into 5 different ways our mouth sort of cuts out a sound. That does not come from seichel. That's deeply rooted in our soul. Why, unlike every other skill that a person has, whether it's a fine motor skill, a gross motor skill that we learn to develop, this one has no ability to develop as far as I know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing when I make a bays or a mem or a pay. It just pops out that way. To think about it, I got to start thinking, okay, bays, mem, pay, whereas everything else I do came the other way around. First, I did it sort of with effort, and after a while, I did it without effort. It became automatic. Either because, as Chassidus explains, I think much faster in this area, or as some people want to say, it's muscle memory. So, for example, playing a piano. In the early stages, I had to think each key, and after, not me, I don't play piano, but after a while, you start knowing how to do it without even thinking. But in truth, you can explain what you're doing to anybody. In speech, the average person, without taking now half an hour to think about it, can't explain how I speak, because speaking, it just pops out into the different parts of our mouth. So speech is directly related to the essence of our neshama, essence of our soul. So that's what we said. Then we had a question. We're going back. We had a question. If we're saying that speech comes from the essence of our soul, which means, what's the essence of our soul? Chachma, the Yud, that first pintele. So why are we saying that Elam Haba is created with the Yud, and Elam Hazeh is created with the Hey? They both come from the Yud. They both come, both Gan Eden, which is the Chachma, skull, understanding, and both Olam Hazeh, which is speaking, the world of Dibur. Hashem created this world as Dibur. We know Dibur in general is the lowest of all skills, as we'll talk about in a minute. So the question is, why do we say that Hashem Kibika? Because Yud, Hey, we created the Yud is Gan Eden, and the Hey is Olam Hazeh. They both come from the Yud. That was the question, right? That's what we're up to All good. That's what we're up to in the Tanya. That was just a recap for those who are coming out. Okay. I want to give a blessing to all those in the refuah shalema, and today's learning should benefit the neshamas of those who passed away, and give strength and healing to those who need a bracha and healing.
Amen.
Okay. So to understand this, there's two ideas we have to understand. A short, easy idea, and one needs a little more explanation. With these two ideas, everything will fall into place. So before we go inside, I'll take some time to explain the outside. One simple short idea is the idea of a mucker. Every single thing in this world has a mucker. What does a mucker mean? It comes from somewhere. There used to be a gift shop in Chicago called HaMakor. Right? You remember that? HaMakor Judaic? I think it closed down. It's called The Source. Why is it called The Source? Everything comes from here. You need it, we got it. We are the source, HaMakor. Source. Now, some things you can see by looking at it what the source is. For an example, if I have a stone that I carved out of a mountain, I look at that stone, I can tell you all about that mountain. It has this type of rock, this type of thing. Why? Because the thing that I'm looking at is identical in part and reflects 100% the source. Then we have things that you can't see the source exactly because the way it comes from the source is not from the source essence or material. It comes from the source in a different way. For an example, if I sing a song or if I write a book, I wrote a book. It doesn't, you could tell me maybe what I was thinking when I wrote the book, but you can't tell me the color of my hair. You can't tell me, if I'm a tall person. Because even though I'm the source, not everything I'm the source of could tell you everything about where it came from because it depends what part of me. If God forbid someone took, or even not so God forbid, someone took some of my DNA, they take it, they scrape your mouth. Now I got a piece of the source. I can tell you all about the person. I can tell you this and that. Why? Because I have the piece of the source. I have the source. So when it comes to saying something's from a source or something comes from somewhere, we have to understand how did it come. Now with that simple point, did it come from a piece of it or was it reflected off of it? It's something I shared an idea. So you can't hear from my idea everything about the person, about me. You can't know, again, my DNA. But if you have some of my DNA, you can tell me a lot more. So when I say this came from a source, in what way did it come? And that leads us to our second main point of this paragraph. There's something called chaymer and there's something called surah. We started talking about it last week and it got a little bit much. So I'm going to try and break it down this week into ideas. Because this is, by the way, not a simple thing. And you'll see why it's not simple. Because there are so many layers. Anything that has layers is not simple. In surah, there's layers and layers, as we'll see. We're going to go into about 3 layers today. Surah. Chaymer means material.
Exactly.
Let's take the easiest example in the world, a chair, a wooden chair. A wooden chair, the chaymer, and I'll use the words in Hebrew. Chaymer means the material itself, the matter. The chaymer is wood. The tzura is the shape. Is it a chair? Is it a table? Is it a piece of wood building a wall? Is it a walking stick? So the tzura is the shape.
That's better.
That
Because we say purpose.
No. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. We said there's layers. Hello. There's layers. But the truth is, that's a very chitzoniistic description of tzura. You see, in tzura itself, we have what's called pnimius and chitzonius. Chitzonius is the shape. The pnimius is its purpose, as Frida is going to say. What does that mean? I look at a chair. I'm seeing a chair, but what is a chair? Let's get to what is a chair? A chair is something to sit on. You can stand on it to reach something high. You can sit on it and become shorter, a little bit of bittul, talk to a different person. You can get comfortable. We could talk about a chair for a few minutes, what it does. So in other words, in tzura, you have what's called panimius hatzura and chitzonius hatzura. The deeper aspect, which tells you its purpose, its value, or, as we'll see in a minute, even more, or it tells you, or you can see its shape. It's a small chair. It's a big chair. There's a lot of ways to describe a chair. So chaymer is the wood. Tzura is the chitzonius of tzura. The external, the shallow level is its shape. The deeper level, panimius of tzura, is what is its purpose? What is the chair? What is a chair? Okay, let's take another example. Written letters. If I take letters and I write it, ink on parchment. So the matter is the ink, right? The matter is the ink. The tzura, the shape, or that's the shape. The tzura could be, first of all, its shape. That's chitzonius hatzura, meaning I see its shape. It's a tall letter, it's wide. It's shaped like a hay with a line on top, a line there, and a line on the little line there. It's shaped like a vav. So chaymer would be the ink. Tzura would be the shape of the letter. And that's Chitzonius Hatzura. Panemius Hatzura, we can take in a couple letters. What is Kabbalah tell you about this shape? Let's take the Hey for an example. Hey represents expansion vertically, expansion horizontally. It represents Bina. I could tell you a lot about it. But there's even more. If I was an expert in handwriting analysis, I could look at the letter you wrote and tell you about the person. The person's aggressive. The person's kind. He's passionate. So even in the Panemius, there are layers and layers. So Tzura really tells you everything beyond the actual material, the actual physical stuff. Let's take 2 more examples. The sun. The sun is the chaymer of the sun. I think this I'm making up because I'm not a scientist or a geologist or a mathematician or a chemist or a physicist. The sun is made up of gases. It's the different types of gases. What's the sun? Gas. I don't even know if it's really a clumpy gas or a mushy gas or air gas. I don't even know, but it's definitely some sort of material. The substance of the sun. Then you have the sun's shape. It's round, as far as I know. If I think you get there, you might find it's not so smooth. Like I know the moon has a bumpy surface, but the sun is round. Then you can talk about the sun, and it's a deeper thing. The sun is part of the spiritual planets that Rambam says have an awareness of God. They are aware of their creator. They're thinking beings. They're intellectual beings. They know. They're different than human beings. They're different than angels, but they know. Then you talk about the sun, its power and impact in the world, that it makes plants grow, and it gives you your vitamin D. And you could start talking about, so the sun has its chaymer. It's a clump, a mass, a certain size, much bigger than Earth, much bigger than, a lot of planets, a lot of stars out there, but it's a glump of matter that's there. That's the chaymer. The tzura is the shape. That's chitzonius tzura. The deeper aspect of the tzura is what it's is as a part of the planets, as part of the solar system, as part of God's spiritual beings that give function to the world. As we know that all the planets in heaven have an effect on the weather patterns, has an effect on many, many things that go on the earth. Some things affect the gravity, something affect the weather, affect the tide. Depends which planet, which the moon, the sun, the stars, etc. Then you have its effect on the world as far as the vitamin D and the photosynthesis in the plant, etc. Let's take the last example now, which is going to affect us. Speech. Not written letters, but speech. When I speak words. So the chaymer, now we're getting to something a little bit more subtle because all the things we've said until now are things you could sort of touch. What's chaymer when you can't touch it? You cannot touch speech. I grabbed these words, I threw them back at the person as fast as they spoke. What's chaymer? So chaymer, there's 2 parts of the chaymer. There's the chaymer as it expresses itself once you cut the letter. That means what happens is you have, let's take a step backwards. Another part of the chaymer is the ear coming, and Chassidus calls it the ear next to the heart. And that's important to know. The ear is next to the heart. I don't know how it works technically, biologically, and physiologically, but the ear, according to Tanya, comes by the heart. It's forced out and makes the sound of if you don't cut it, if you don't direct it. When it comes out, this H sound, this sound.
Air.
What? Ear, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I said ear?
Well, your accent.
I'm a mixture of New York, England, Wisconsin accents, a little bit of Texas. It's going to be ear, A-I-R.
Okay.
Ear. Ear.
It sounded like weird.
Heir. Someone who inherits is called an heir. A heir.
No.
A rabbit. Okay.
What are you saying?
The ear that's compressed out of your lungs. Ear. How do you say the word? How do I say it?
Ear.
Is it a roof or a roof? How do you say the top of a house? Hey. Okay. I'm saying.
Okay. Air.
Okay. Air.
Air.
Air. Ear. Okay. Just if I say the word ear, I mean ear. Okay.
And when you say ear?
If I say ear, I mean ear.
The ear, the heart.
You know. You know what they say? Ear today, gone tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Back to our current program now. So the air that's pumped up when you speak, let's call it the flow of gases that are up when you speak. This air is the actual early stages of chaymer. It's still chaymer. Why? It's just air. It's just a pressure. It's just a force. That will become cut into the exact chaymer once it either hits the roof of my mouth my tongue, my teeth, my lips, my throat. It's going to go either as a g or a p or a ts or a l. It all depends on where it hits my mouth. In other words, the chaymer of the letter is the sound of the letter as it's cut from the mouth, and the five, what's called mitzoras hapeh, the five ways a mouth expresses something. The ear where it comes from, the early stages, is also chaymer.
It does.
What is surah? Surah is the thought, the content, the feelings, the message. What?
Nice.
What?
Matzoros?
Moitzaot. Motzaot hapeh. The five ways that we express it, the famous five final letters,
Exactly.
which is mem, nun, tzadik, pei, and final chaf. Those five letters have final letters. Those five represent the five different ways that our mouth can express a sound, either with our lips, like a mem, or a nun with the top of our palate, our tse with our teeth, el with our tongue, and a throat. Different ways that we can cut a letter, but it's all coming. What does it mean? It's whatever's obstructing. The way what it really is happening is the ear is coming out of my throat, and it's getting obstructed in the process. How I obstruct it will determine the type of sound that comes out. That is the hey mitzoras hapeh, the five ways that you can express. That's all the chaymer. The tzura is what's behind the letters, the spirit, the feeling, the message, the content of what those letters are expressing. That's all in a human being. Now, we said Hashem created the world. Hashem created the world with speech. So, we said before, we had a question. Does Olam Hazeh come from God's Yud, of God's name, or the Hey of God's name? So it answered like this. The Gan Eden, which is a very lofty and spiritual world, takes it from the Tzura. The Tzura is a much deeper aspect. The Tzura means the Tzura of the Yud, whereas the Olam Hazeh takes it from the Chaymer of the Yud, which means it's not a contradiction. When we say that Olam Haba, or Gan Eden, was created with the Yud, that means it's created with the essence, the Tzura, the deeper aspect, the true essence of what a Yud is. That's God's energy, God's flow. Because in letters, what do we say is the surah of a letter? My intent, my insight, that which I want to express. Whereas the chaymer, the coarse part, the matter of a letter, a spoken word I'm talking about, that is a much more dense and lower level, and that's where the physical world takes it from. So it's not a contradiction to say that the Yud created both. As we'll see, as we'll go through the next couple of lines here, how exactly this process takes place. So what are we really saying here to take everything I said the last few minutes and keep it in short? The answer is, it depends if you're talking about the chaymer or the tzura of the letters. There's not a contradiction anymore. The chaymer is where the coarse part, the matter, is what's creating Olam Hazeh. And the tzura, the spiritual, the deeper, the inner essence, the innermost essence, is what creates Olam Haba. And that's why there are two different worlds. And that we're going to explain now inside. Okay. And that's the answer we said when it says, oh, I missed one detail. So come back to the very beginning. So we said in a mucker, it depends what type of thing comes from a source. If we're taking some DNA, you can see the DNA of something. But if the mucker is only giving off a lofty or deeper part, let's say a song or a message, you're not going to see everything within it. So the question is, what type of result and where in the mucker did the worlds come from? Did the mucker come from a place where it's the chaymer or the tzura, which we're going to explain? That's why I mentioned mucker before. Okay. Back inside, 214, 5 lines in the top, new paragraph. And this is, by the way, this idea of chaymer and tzura is a very, very important concept to know about. It's worth going over it and over it many times because this is used in a lot of places in Chassidus. Chaymer and tzura. We talk about, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but like in a yeshiva, a lot of times the mashpiyim are the ones who are supposed to not just teach the boys technical information, but help refine their character, and they should grow as chassidim and be more careful with the mitzvah and daven nicer and farbring, etc. A lot of times they would say, this guy has a wonderful chaymer, but he's lacking tzura. What does that mean? He has the material part. He's a smart, good kid. He's a good boy. He comes on time to yeshiva. He sits and learns. But the tzura, the deeper aspect, what the person's supposed to really be, that's missing. We're missing some little more years, shemayim, a little more fear of God, a little more. Meaning, in every person, you have the chaymer of the person, and you have the tzura of the person. What's his tzura? In other words, another word that we find sometimes associated with is the mahus. You have the metzias of a person and the mahus of a person. Metzias means the person. The metzias means what he's found. He's a metzia, yeah. Metzia means the metzius is the person here. This cup has a metzias. It's present. It's motza. It's found here. And then the mahus. What's your mahus? Who are you? Who are you? I'm a cup that fills other cups with water. I'm a pitcher. I'm a table. I'm a chair. Meaning, what's your mahus? What's your identity? So these ideas in Hasidus are discussed a lot to understand what is something, what is a thing. Okay, when it comes to the letters, they are called with terms called chaymer, the matter of the letters, the material makeup, v'tzura, and the shape. As we mentioned before, the shape is not really the best translation because the shape is only the chitzonius of the tzura. The pnimius of the tzura is much deeper. It's intent. And these two aspects of a letter is really called the pnimius of the letter and the chitzonius of the letter. Now we find a lot of times interesting in Hasidus, something that can be very frustrating, that we use words that are the same exact words, but depending where they use what they mean. What does that mean? Right now we're saying in the Tanya here that the chaymer is the pnimius of a letter. That means the matter is the essence of the letter. Sorry, I said it backwards. The chaymer, thank you. Thank you for shaking your head. The chaymer is the chitzonius of the letter. Thank you. I need someone to listen. The chaymer is the external part, and the tzura is the pnimius. But then we'll say in the tzura itself, there's a pnimius and a chitzonius. We said before that once you go into the tzura, we have the external part, which is the shape, and then we have the internal part, which is the purpose. So a lot of times the same word, depending where we're using it, means something else. So the word pnimius means tzura in general, but in the tzura itself, you have the chitzonius, so the tzura and the pnimius. So you have to, like we say, focus. And hopefully the person saying the explanations doesn't mix up the words. Okay. Because even though the source of these letters, all of them come from what's called kadmas haseichel, the earliest stage is in seichel, which we also know as chachma. Chachma, as we spoke, in the process of seichel, we have basically two major steps. Chachma, the initial flash of information from the essence of our soul, and then bina, the development of that seichel, that thought. So you have all this comes from seichel, kadmas haseichel, the earliest stages of seichel, ever rotzen nefesh, and it comes from the desire of our heart. Because what's just before seichel? If you want to start going deeper and deeper into a person, so the deepest emotions are already getting more external. That's already emotions are something which has to require other people involved. You don't have emotions if no one, because emotions in general are reaction from things around you. So emotions are external. Seichel is much deeper. The more you go into intellect, the cognitive abilities, you're now retreating deeper into your identity. I'm thinking. I don't even need anyone. As a matter of fact, it's easier if the room is empty. The more space I have from other people, the better my seichel can function. The more honest my seichel is going to be. Things, I become biased. I become affected. So seichel goes deeper in me. In seichel itself, you have chachma, the earliest stages of chachma. Why is chachma more deeper? Because chachma, I can't choose. Seichel, I could choose how to think. I want to understand. That's bina. I'm trying to understand. Chachma is the deepest part of seichel, where I don't even choose it. It comes in the subconscious and the conscious. Ideas pop into my head. Where'd that come from? It was a flash from the essence of my soul. But then there's something even deeper. Ratzon. Ratzon means what I really want. What do I want? Not just I want right now a bagel. I want a cup of coffee. I might want my desires in life. People have desires that are very deep and profound that really push and guide your whole existence. My desire to one day live in Israel, which could take up and encompass your entire life. My desire for the people to be free of anti-Semitism. My desire, these are bigger global desires. And these drive many things. And that will drive a lot of times even your seichel, how you think, how you function, how you decide. Your function of speech is so amazing that it's directly related and bypasses everything to the source, to Ratzon, which means everything else you do in life has to go through from chachma to bina to das to chesed, gevura to feres. The whole journey, how it gets out, whether it's sharing a thought, whether it's sharing an emotion. The one thing that skips and bypasses everything is speech. My speech, and the way we proved it is that my lips form letters without me thinking about it. Where does that come from? The essence, my chachma, my ratzon, my deepest part of my soul. So We said the intellect, everything starts in your soul, and the letters start in your soul. The speech starts in your soul, but they both have the same source. But as we'll see, where and how do they come out into the revealed state is different. So let's see this right here. Both of them come. That is all talking about how the letters will be expressed comes from the Ratzon, which means the Ratzon determines, I want to have now a letter that sounds like this. It's going to come out to this sound. But that's in the stage of Ratzon. My Ratzon is, my deepest thing is, I need it to come out this sound. Now something else has to happen. I actually have to physically function and make that sound. Like I can have a desire right now to have a coffee. I have to actually reach out, pick up the coffee from my mouth and drink it. So there's the wanting to have a coffee, and actually getting the coffee is different. My Ratzon Nefesh wants to say certain sounds, but now I got to use the Chaymer, which comes from the same source, but it goes through the ear and my chest, and it goes through the particular parts of my mouth to actually shape the letter. So the deepest part comes from the tzura, the shape that is wanted to be expressed, and then you have it how it's actually expressed in the Chaymer. Let's go back 2 lines, just so we get it clear. Zui bechinas tzuras shinoi. This represents what comes from the essence of the soul. It's the different ways and shapes, hamivta, how it will be expressed, shebechav beis ha'isiyes, the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis. It's going to be a beis, a vav. You remember, even in the lips, there's 4 different sounds. There's a beis, there's a mem, there's a pei, there's a vav. You have 4 different sounds in the lips itself. How that comes out is coming from the Ratzon HaSeichel in the source of my nefesh. But the way they're actually formed into their final expression, how the person next to you hears the bass sound or hears the mem sound, and that is the level of the chitzonius of the letter, the external part of the letter, which is the chaymer, that comes actually from hevel. Hevel meaning the ear, A-I-R. It comes from the ear, which is next to your heart. And this is very important to hear this. How does it work? Again, this is the Alter Rebbe is giving you a biology class in the spiritual sense. How does words come into being? There's an ear that's next to your heart. And I don't know how this fits into the idea of your lungs or not. If that's someone who knows.
Because you have in your heart 2 different parts. One part is collecting the blood that has
right, the left ventricle and the right ventricle.
And then you have the part that it.
Right, the left ventricle has oxygenated blood that came out of the lungs, and the right ventricle has air going into the blood going into the lungs. That's to get the oxygen. But the bottom line is, he says this ear comes next to your heart. The first stage of speech is just ear coming up, less ear coming out of your throat. That's coming up through your throat. After it comes up your throat, it comes into 22 different expressions and sound.
Wow.
And these 22 sounds have to be expressed in one of the 5 well-known ways that the mouth makes sounds. And he gives 2 examples. Acha mehagarin, aleph, ches, hey, ayin, from the throat. And again, the ches here is not the same ches as we say as a chaf. It's a deeper ches. It's more like Sephardi ches. And then we have, that's why you see the chaf is different. And gimel, yud, chaf, kuf, me'achech. You might say, hey, you just said the ches, now you the chaf. Make up your mind. Is the chaf or the ches? The ches in technical Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, in its source, is very different. Just like the gimel is a very different gimel. There are certain sounds that we today, the suf, as I mentioned last week, is really a thuf. It's like a FTH sound. The ches is much more of a guttural sound. Yeah, there's different sounds that we don't pronounce today accurately because the Ashkenazim sort of lost it. The Sephardim feel they still have it. No, seriously, the Sephardim feel like they still have it, and they do have a tradition for it. And I don't say if they feel like they have it, like to be that they're really wrong. They have a tradition that this is how the gimel sounds and the het sounds. All the sounds.
Because the Teimanim are supposed to have the most.
Right, the Teimanim are very into it. You go to Ofer, he'll tell you the sound of each letter, the ayin has the n mixed into it. They're not just the sounds that we have. That's why I'm just explaining why you have the chaf and the ches in 2 different parts of the mouth. Because one is a het, which is deep down, and one's a chaf, which is coming already in the palate.
But here it doesn't mention
like for example, האותיות האלו,
right?
Aleph,
Ches, Hey, Ayin.
but you also have Reish.
No, but that's already different. Reish is coming from a different part of your mouth.
Mhm.
There's 22 letters. Like again, I'm not the expert right now to go through each one what parts, because you have to think.
It's very different.
I'll tell you what. There's also again the reish itself. All the sounds start through your throat. The question is, at what point are you putting sort of
What
an
are you-
obstacle that's making it change a sound? As you know, in sounds, it's the obstacle that makes the sound.
Yes.
When you blow into a wind instrument, so you're blowing the same amount. Whatever, I don't know how to blow into it. But what changes the sound
The shofar.
is what you block it. Well, the shofar is made different. The shofar is not blowing. The shofar is a very different sound. It's more like it's which reminds me after
But
the
it's
shofar.
air.
Right,
Yeah.
it's air. But in the instrument, the actual in the shofar, the change of the sounds is really how I'm forcing the air in. That's actually a very good point. In the shofar, it's very different. All the changes are made in how I'm forcing the air. If I'm pushing it harder or lighter, my tongue is getting involved. It's not the instrument. In an instrument, like it's a saxophone or a thing. Again, I never play these instruments. It's all which things you're pressing and how the ear is being obstructed or flowing, which is creating it. So the point you're saying here is that this aspect, the chaimer of the letter, doesn't come from its source in the ratzon. It's everything comes from there originally. It's processed through the ear and your bite of the hevel, and that's why we say the hey. If you remember from one of the earlier prakim in Shar Yichud V'Emunah, the hey represents the plain sound coming from your throat before it's designed. Now that sound is plain. That's why we call the last letter hey of Malchus is dibur, because dibur all starts from a hey. Every single letter of the 22 letters, it starts off almost like a hey, which is just the ear coming out. A-I-R. Okay, the same thing you have gimel, yud, chaf, kuf, me'acheyach, etc. Umivta hevel. And what is this push of the sound? U'eis hey asta klila. As we say in Kabbalah, it's called a very soft letter. Hey is the softest letter. If you want to say which letter is the softest, every letter has a roughness to it. Beis, che, me, ge, de. A letter that's soft, just relaxing. It's called a soft letter. And that is the source of the chaimer of the asius. Comes out that while the tsura of the asius, meaning its intent, its meaning, its desire, what sound I wanted to make, starts off my etzem of seichel, chachma, or ratzon seichel, but the actual sound itself, it begins in the ear. That's the chaimer. Because the chaimer is what's actually being expressed. V'gam ha'asius, terem is chalkus l'chav beis v'lachin amazal shel mazen ne'ubehei. And it also refers to the letters before they're divided up. While once you come from the lave, the heart, this area, as we'll see why I keep mentioning heart in next chapter, next paragraph, you'll see why I keep saying that it comes from the heart. It's very important to know that. So this area that once the ear is expressed from the inside next to your heart to come out, that's where the chaimer of the letter starts. How do we answer our question? That it's true. The deeper aspect of the letter, what shape it's going to be, takes directly from the ratzon. What shape it's going to be, intent, all the things come from the deepest ratzon. But the actual sound, that starts from the hey. So to answer our question, yes. Elam, now going back to not the letters of a person, but letters of God. The yud of God's name created Elam Haba, Gan Eden. And also coming from that level is, and even higher than that really, as we'll see later in the chapter, comes the intent, what's going to come out the sound. But the actual sound, the chaimer, comes from the hey. So this that we said that the letters are bypass everything, it doesn't mean the chaimer of the letters, it means the tsura of the letter bypasses everything. And now, if you want to take a person's speech, you can divide it now into 3 layers, 3 things. You have the seichel, what a person is going to say, that goes through the process. You have the sound of the letters as it comes out, that goes through the process. But the tsura of the letters, that bypasses the system, which means the intent, how a letter should be cut is unique, that bypasses the system. And that doesn't go through chachma, bina, das, etc. That goes straight from the ratzon or the ukadmos haseichel and comes straight from there to express itself in the shape it's going to be. How it actually happens, that's chaimer already. This is how we answer the question. But now the Alter Rebbe, we have just 2 minutes to ask another question, and we'll start next week. This next thing is going to say 1 second. Is this clear, by the way? Is this
Yes. Okay?
We wanted to do it over because it is a lot. By the way, there's so much more that we can add to this, but the reality is the point we want to make is one main akudah, which this chapter is going to get to. We want to get to a point that how our action of tzedakah can have an effect on the highest realms of godliness. And this is what you have to know for this. There's a lot more we could talk about on every letter and every aspect, how we talk and how Surah and Chaymer works, etc.
What's amazing is this was written how many hundreds of years ago?
This was written probably, the Alter Rebbe wrote this part of the Tanya probably in the 1790s.
Exactly.
And this is basic, not basic, but explains more of speech therapy.
Yeah. Someone who knows the function of the body according to Chassidus, have a better understanding of the physical body.
Yeah.
The key is, and this is very key, and I have to say it very clearly, you have to have someone who explains and knows what he's talking about. What does that mean? A lot of people like myself who study Tanya don't know a lot about biology. So when we teach it, we might give the wrong metaphor, the wrong example, the wrong thing. But someone who truly understands biology and science and the physical body and understands Chassidus could actually give a very beautiful harmony and how everything fits together beautifully.
Absolutely.
It's
this is exactly what I learned in speech therapy.
Yeah. There's a famous teaching, I think it's Rabbi Maharash, if I'm not mistaken, could be someone else, I think it's Rabbi Maharash, that his son came in the late 1800s,
That's a good one.
and he told him, very excited, that they just found out, it might put the middle Rabbi, I think it's Rabbi Maharash, that they just found out, scientists, that there's a little nerve or blood vessel in the back of your neck, that when you lean back, it presses one way, it helps you remember, and you lean forward, it helps you think. So the Rabbi Maharash took out a sefer that was written hundreds of years earlier,
And you should know that.
and he says it's here. And what was the purpose? Not that they were such great scientists. It says, my flesh I know God. Hashem created the human being in an exact replica of how things are in heaven. Hashem wants us to understand spirituality, understand creation of the world to the best of our abilities. So Hashem did things in a certain way that we can understand it. And he made our bodies, he created man in the image of God, means not that Hashem looks like a person, God forbid. It means the structure and the function of Hashem interacts with the world is this way. So if you understand in the world that there's such a thing called the parts of and the head and this, you know what happens by a person too. And that's how there are many examples there's actually one of the most beautiful stories. It's a story, I say it's newer. I only read the story like 5 years ago. I think it's a fascinating story. And that's the Alter Rebbe when he was in prison. So the ministers would love to come visit him. They had respect. They realized he's a brilliant person. He is extraordinary, giant of a holy man and everything. And all different ministers, especially the Minister of Education, would love to come and talk about Rashis and things. And they love to discuss ideas because they realize he's brilliant. So the 53 days that he was there in prison, he was nudged by these ministers to come in. At one time, a minister comes and tells him, and I think it's a well-known story, that they just got a map from the New World, from America, that it's the first time it reached the shores of Russia, this map, and he wants to share with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is a brilliant Nevi field. They show him this map. So the Alter Rebbe looks at the map, and he says, actually, there's a mistake here in the map. So the person says, Rabbi, I know you're very smart, and you know science, and you know astronomy, and you know these things, but you've never been to the New World. So in this one, I gotta say, nice try, Anyway, a couple of days later, the guy comes astounded back into the Alter Rebbe. They just sent him a correction. There was a mistake in the map. And they brought it to him to correct the map. He said, how did you know? He says, Hashem created the world. It says, Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. If you want to know the world, the map, the world, just look into the Torah and you'll understand it. He goes, I saw how it is in its source and it wasn't matching how it is in the picture. So again, this is an idea that, so everything we see in the human body is, there's two halves to it. One is it's a reflection of what is above. But the same thing is like the Maggid's famous teaching, know what happens above is because of you. As we'll see in the rest of the chapter, at the same time, your actions matter. Because you are a reflection of it, there's a famous teaching, and we'll finish with this, the Baal Shem Tov, where it says, Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shade. On a simple, we say it, it's a very big in this time of the year. So we say, simply it means that Hashem is our shade, Hashem protects us. Hashem, they try and shoot missiles at us. But we can understand that, thank God, that's all these missiles. We think it's just the Iron Dome, which is a miracle in itself that it works. The fact is, many that the Iron Dome doesn't catch lands in the field, lands here. Hashem is your protection. Hashem is your shade. Baal Shem Tov says a much deeper interpretation. Hashem tzilch, Hashem is your shadow. What's the difference of shadow? A shadow, everything you do, your shadow does. You ever noticed, if you want to try and escape your shadow, you can't. Your shadow, whatever you do, it copies you. What does it mean? Your shadow is just a reflection of you. Hashem tzilcha means Hashem acts above based on what you down here. You do tzedakah, Hashem does tzedakah. You're kind, Hashem is kind. You raised your house into a holier place. Hashem makes it a holier place, which means Hashem acts at everything you do. So it's a two-way street.